Hello, I'm Dr. Niall McCarty, and I'm the Marcus Professor of Cystic Fibrosis in the Department of Pediatrics at the Emory University School of Medicine. I'm also the director of the Emory Plus Children's CF Center of Excellence, otherwise known as CF Atlanta. And on behalf of my co-directors, Dr. Arlene Stasenko and Dr. Marvin Whiteley, I'd like to welcome you to our CF Atlanta 10-year update and to thank you for joining us. Over the next hour or so, you'll have the opportunity to learn about what CF Atlanta has accomplished in all three parts of our mission: the research component, clinical care component, and the education and outreach component of our mission. You'll have an opportunity to meet some team members and some partners in this really important effort, including Dr. Rachel Linneman, who's the director of our comprehensive CF care program, our care center, and Dr. Randy Hunt, who's the director of the adult program within our care center. I'll give you an update on research, including introducing you to two of our really outstanding investigators, Dr. Jessica Alvarez and Dr. Marvin Whiteley. Then I'll tell you a little bit about our educational program, including the CF Scholars Program, and then introduce you to Mrs. Molly Taggart, who's the executive director of the Georgia chapter of the CF Foundation and is a really fantastic partner for everything we do at CF Atlanta. But before we get rolling, I want you to meet two other really strong supporters of ours, Mr. Will Scherer and Mr. Doug Hertz.
Hi, I'm Will Scherer. Happy to be here to help celebrate CF Atlanta in 10 great years. I'm a CF dad, probably above all else, and got two children with cystic fibrosis, Helen and Hayes. Got to know Niall almost 10 years ago when a friend of mine at Children's approached me talking about CF care in Atlanta. And really maybe go back to my beginning with CF care in Atlanta, and one of the very first calls I had made was to Doug when I found out that Helen was diagnosed, our first child, with CF in 2005. And one of the things I did was look around at the best places we could probably find care for her. And one of the things I quickly found out was the importance of having both clinical care and research together in one place. Those places across the country that had the best care, the best outcomes, were coming where you had that collaboration. And in Atlanta, I'm an Atlanta guy. I love Atlanta. But we just didn't have that going in Atlanta at the time. And I thought to myself, gosh, we have so many resources in Atlanta with Children's and Emory and Georgia Tech and CDC and Medical College of Georgia. Just how is it we don't have all that collaborating yet? And lo and behold, I didn't know, but Niall was behind the scenes already working on all this. And sure enough, here we are 10 years later, excited to see how far we've come, exactly what's happened with the CF care in Atlanta, and the combination of the care centers and the care that our children get here in Atlanta now because of that. So excited to celebrate here with y'all today.
And I'm Doug Hertz. I have the fortunate circumstance to work with Will and every day, and so I've really gotten to know the Scherer family. And so CF and all the opportunities around CF, both from a care standpoint and a research standpoint, have become personal to me as well. My non-paying jobs, I've been chair of the board at Children's Healthcare and chair of the board at the Georgia Research Alliance, both of which we've been able to have the opportunity to work in the CF world. And as Will said, for most of the public, we were naive to what was available here and what the opportunities were. And so I'm just thrilled that we're sort of sitting here 10 years later and have become one of the great centers for both clinical care and research here in Atlanta, with the cooperation of Georgia Tech, with the cooperation of Emory, obviously with the cooperation of Children's, but also the medical school in Augusta. I guess we're close to 150 faculty members now, and it's fantastic what has happened. And then while I was at working with the Georgia Research Alliance, having the opportunity to recruit one of the top folks in the world, Dr. Eric Sorscher, and get to know him and get so excited about not only what he was doing, but also all the folks that he could help attract. I'm an Atlanta guy too, and I'm really invested in children's, and so what I wanted to see was Atlanta become a center for care and research and to help find a cure for so many of the people that are dealing with this disease. And I'm just grateful for all the work that Niall has done, Arlene has done, and their whole team, and all the research that has been done and that Eric has led since he's come here. So again, congratulations on this fantastic accomplishment 10 years in, and we're making great progress.
And thank you really for being there today and gathering and supporting this initiative, and we look forward to 10 more years of great research, great improvements, impressive quality of care for all the families here in Atlanta, Georgia, and beyond. So please support us, help Niall and all the team. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will and Doug, for that really important message. Now I'm going to give you an update on what we've been doing in our research program. But before we launch into that, I just want to remind you what's at stake. I like to start all these sorts of talks with a photo of one of our patients, just to remind you what we're really here for. This is a photo of Blake when he was 2.5 years old. He's 13, a bit over 13 now, and he's doing pretty well. But Blake was diagnosed with CF at age 6 weeks from our newborn screening program. Just a few important details to remember about CF. This disease is the most common life-shortening genetic disease among Caucasians in the US. It impacts all ethnic groups. The disease begins in infancy, and its care becomes a lifelong focus for the patients and their families. In fact, it becomes the key driver of the family dynamic. Due to progressive airways disease, the national median age of death in 2018 was only 30.8 years. Those are the most recent data we have. I just want to remind you that many of our patients actually die at a very young age. So our patients still need us working hard to improve the length and quality of their lives. We were very fortunate in January of 2010 when Children's first launched its set of research centers. The Center for CF and Airways Disease Research, otherwise known as CF-AIR, was one of those first centers that got started. This center has 3 important components that are shown here: the CF Biospecimen Repository, the Animal Models Core, and the Biomarkers Core. Amongst these components, the Biospecimen Repository, shown here at the top, is a really important part of our program. What this is all about is trying to gather patient-derived samples of a variety of fluids and cells from our patients that we can then provide to researchers for their investigations. So this includes blood and sputum and exhaled breath condensate and bacterial isolates and maybe airway cells. And these samples are absolute treasures that our investigators absolutely have to have for their very important studies. I'm really happy to report that over 90% of our patients in our very large clinical program are involved in the CF Biospecimen Repository. They've engaged, they've contributed samples. And over the last few years, we've been able to provide over 2,600 samples to 27 different research labs, mostly in Georgia. I'm going to use this slide to tell you how we've been able to build on this initial investment and really build a comprehensive research infrastructure that allows us to tackle important problems in CF. In 2015, we were fortunate to be supported by the CF Foundation via one of their mechanisms that's called a Research Development Program Center Grant. So we became an RDP Center Grant in 2015, and we're about to try to renew this proposal, this part of our program, with a grant to be submitted in February. Our RDP Center Grant to be submitted in February will have a theme of the systems ecology of the CF lung, where we really try to work with our patients to understand what's going on in their lungs, particularly as we think about the immune system and the inflammatory system and how those are just not working right in the lungs of our patients, such that they don't clear the bacteria that really set up this inappropriate ecology in the lungs of our patients. This grant will focus entirely on pulmonary aspects of CF and has a couple of sort of administrative components, including a research training core for education and a pilot and feasibility grant program. In September of this year, we were honored by the NIH to be funded through one of their large grant mechanisms, what's called a P30 Center grant. So this allowed us to establish the Georgia CF Core Center, which is not the Atlanta CF Core Center, it's the Georgia CF Core Center, because now we're including both institutions in Atlanta and Augusta. Augusta is the home of the only other CF Foundation accredited care center in the state of Georgia. The 61 investigators involved in this project are at Emory, Georgia Tech, and Augusta University, where the Medical College of Georgia exists. This grant focuses entirely on non-pulmonary aspects of CF, including CF-related diabetes, GI and liver disease, and nutritional aspects of this disease. We also study on how lifestyle and behavior choices such as exercise, diet, and sleep impact disease progression. An important part of this grant is the Clinical Research and Informatics Core, which works with our patients and works with our physicians to try to link our clinical data from our patients with research data from investigators that have been studying samples and studying behaviors from these patients. This also includes an administrative core that has a lot of components like the RDP grant. Now, we don't just work on basic and translational research in CF. Of course, we're very active in clinical research for CF. We have been a member for several years of the CF Foundation's Therapeutic Development Network for Clinical Research, the TDN. In fact, we're one of the top centers in CF clinical research for both children and adults. We contributed to studies for each of the new very highly impactful modulators, the new therapies that have been recently approved. In fact, over the last year, from 2019 to 2020, we've been involved in 26 different studies through the TDN, on top of several what we call investigator-initiated studies that were not part of the TDN. So we've been building this really robust research infrastructure for basic and translational research and clinical research in CF, on top of an educational and sort of intellectual environment that we've built around CF. This includes things that are listed here at the bottom of the slide: educational programs, pilot grants from these three different components, a workshop and seminar program for our investigators and trainees, and a joint lab meeting for investigators and trainees where we talk about projects and talk about research ideas, and where we help our investigators and our trainees improve their grant proposals before we submit them. A lot of this is managed through the Research Oversight Committee that tries to make sure we're making the best use of our very treasured resources of our patients and families and the samples that they provide. And that's through each of these three components of our various research center components. So who's doing all this work? Well, before the center launched, the CF Air Center in 2010, there actually were only two people at Emory who were really focusing mainly on CF research. That's Dr. Sisenko and myself. When CF Air launched in 2010, we went up to 11 investigators from multiple departments, both at Emory and Georgia Tech. And then we've grown quite a lot since 2010, in the last decade, to where we now have about 148 members involved in our research program at various levels of engagement. So some very, very involved and some a little bit less involved. Those 148 members are spread out at Emory, at Georgia Tech, at Augusta University, at Children's, at the CDC, and even at UGA. Within those 148 investigators, we have some that are people who really spend a lot of their time on CF research. Most of their research is in CF. So we call those our core CF investigators. And I just want to point out that these people are at multiple institutions, and within an institution, they're in multiple departments. So for instance, all the folks in the green boxes and black boxes are in the Department of Pediatrics at Emory. People in the blue boxes are in the Department of Medicine at Emory. Our colleagues at Georgia Tech are in the yellow boxes, and they're in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, and the Department of Chemistry, and the Department of Biological Sciences. We also have one core investigator at UGA, and we even have one investigator in the Emory Department of Chemistry, who's Dr. Bill Wiest. So how have we been able to do this? How have we been able to build this research program so well? Well, it really comes mainly from really outstanding institutional commitment to CF research, starting in January of 2010 when CF Air opened. This comes from a variety of sources, but heavily from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta Research Trust toward faculty startups, that's funding to allow a faculty member to start up their lab, and from Emory University and the Woodruff Health Science Center also toward faculty startups. Georgia Tech and Georgia State, for faculty at those institutions, also contributed to faculty startups. And then the Research Trust for center operations and for pilot grants within CF Air. So this comes to a total institutional commitment to CF research just in the last 10 years of over $33.5 million. And we are really deeply grateful for this institutional commitment and support. This does not include the $3.2 million from the Georgia Research Alliance that Mr. Hertz told you about, that was used for the recruitment of Drs. Sorsher and Wiest to Emory and Dr. Whiteley to Georgia Tech. Dr. Sorsher and Dr. Whiteley are both GRA eminent scholars, and Dr. Wiest is a GRA distinguished investigator. So these wonderful investigators have been very important for us getting these large infrastructure grants. But of course, you can only get those grants if those investigators are really active and really successful in getting grants of their own for their own labs. So this is a short list of only some of the recent grants, research grants to our investigators. I couldn't fit all of them on this slide. And you don't really have to focus on the titles of these grants, but I want to point out two important things. First off, shown in bold are the sources, the agencies that this funding has come from, including the CF Foundation, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and the Burroughs Wellcome Fund. I also want to point out that a lot of these grants involve people at one institution but within multiple departments, or people across two institutions or more. So for instance, here this top one is from Dr. Alvarez in Emory's Department of Medicine and Dr. Stasenko in Emory's Pediatrics Department. The next one down is from Dr. Stasenko at Emory and Dr. Sam Brown at Georgia Tech. Another great example is this one from Dr. Balaj Radha at the UGA, along with these four investigators from Emory. Of course, the very large NIH P30 grant that I mentioned before has 61 investigators at 3 different institutions. And then not shown on this slide are numerous trainee awards that have been funded by the NIH and the CF Foundation. Our investigators are really great at getting grants for their research efforts. Another wonderful marker of research productivity is the development of new intellectual property that often leads to patents. So shown here is just a subset of the patents that our core team has been able to get or submit, showing from Dr. Tiravanzium at Emory and Dr. Wiest and myself. All of these new patents involve research that's relevant and products that's relevant to CF. So now I want to introduce you to two of our really outstanding investigators, starting first with Dr. Jessica Alvarez, who's a rising star and one of the leaders in our non-pulmonary CF research program, and Dr. Marvin Whiteley, who's a senior investigator at Georgia Tech and is really the anchor faculty member in CF at Georgia Tech.
My name is Jessica Alvarez. I'm an assistant professor in the Division of Endocrinology, Metabolism, and Lipids at Emory University. Broadly, my research interest is nutrition and how it influences metabolism in chronic diseases. More specifically, my research is focused on nutrition in cystic fibrosis. My research interest in cystic fibrosis has sort of taken a circular route. I was first introduced to CF during a pediatric dietetic internship, and I was completely amazed at the interdisciplinary aspect of CF care and how important nutrition was in these children with cystic fibrosis. As fate would have it, when I was interviewing for postdocs, I met Vintang Precha at Emory University, who had just received a large multi-center grant to study vitamin D in cystic fibrosis, in adults with cystic fibrosis. So I decided to team up with Dr. Tang Precha, and I have been studying nutrition in CF adults since then. Over the last several years, with the CF Center, we've realized how important the non-pulmonary complications of CF will become as CF life improves and age expectancy increases. So we recently worked together with Augusta University, Georgia Tech, Emory, Children's Hospital of Atlanta to put together a large center grant funded by the National Institutes of Health, which we call the Georgia CF Center. We are really excited about the Georgia CF Center. Some of the issues that we will address, the non-pulmonary issues that we'll address, are diabetes, issues with GI and liver disease, nutrition and body composition, lifestyle behaviors such as diet, what we eat, exercise, and sleep. All of our core activities with the diabetes, GI, and nutrition core, and the lifestyles and behaviors core are centered around this partnership that we have with our patient CF population. So we are inviting participants with CF to come into our research units so that we can perform oral glucose tolerance tests, so that we can do lifestyle and behavior assessments, such as collect dietary information, exercise information, and really we want to work with our patient population to develop this warehouse, this repository of information that investigators can come in and study CF health. We used to think of CF as a pediatric lung disease. Therapies have advanced so much over the last several decades. We are able to start to think about how our patients with CF will age. As our population with CF ages, we have to start thinking about non-pulmonary issues such as cystic fibrosis-related diabetes, such as liver disease, bone disease, all of these things that will influence our quality of life as we age and that are becoming more prominent in the older populations with cystic fibrosis. And so our new center, our Georgia CF Center, Core Center, is addressing all of these issues, not just in pediatrics, but also in adults with cystic fibrosis. Over the years, as we've tried to build these non-pulmonary research avenue in cystic fibrosis, it's really taken a lot of support from the community to be able to start to do that. And with that, we've been able to grow it into a nationally funded core center. I am so excited about the future of the CF program and in helping to improve the quality of life of our CF population.
Hi, I'm Marvin Whiteley. I'm a professor of biological sciences at Georgia Institute of Technology. I'm also an adjunct professor in the Department of Pediatrics at Emory, and I'm co-director of CF Atlanta. And I was recently hired about 3 years ago to Atlanta by the Georgia Research Alliance. To tell you why I came to Atlanta, I probably have to tell you a little bit about where I was before I came to Atlanta. And when I was a professor at the University of Texas at Austin for 11 years before I arrived here. And moving here was actually a really big deal for me and my family because we are all from Texas. We actually grew up very near Austin, and actually I was an undergraduate there. So moving here was actually a really big deal for our family. Why would we move, right? Why would you move away from home to actually come to a different city? And really, I think there were a couple of things that made us want to be in Atlanta, and particularly me for my job. And the first thing was Georgia Tech. I wanted to move to a place that had a lot of the same, capabilities that Austin had. UT Austin's a really great university, as is Georgia Tech. There's a lot of technical and really, a lot of technical expertise there. There's a lot of infrastructure there to do really high-end quantitative research. And, but what was lacking in Austin, I think, which really drove us to Atlanta, was the lack of clinical research abilities. Austin did not have a medical school till very late in my career there. And my lab had sort of transitioned. We had really started out my whole career as a microbiologist, really doing sort of test tube science. And for those of you that may not know what test tube science is, it's basically taking something, putting it into an environment that it doesn't normally live in. I'm a bacteriologist, so that was taking Pseudomonas, which you've probably all heard about, putting it into a test tube and studying it. And we really began to realize that studying Pseudomonas in a test tube was really never going to tell us what we really wanted to know about cystic fibrosis and Pseudomonas infection. And what we really needed to do was we really needed to interact with clinicians. We needed to find clinicians that we could actually talk to, that could actually take a basic scientist like me who wants to work on everything in all kinds of ways and say, don't work on this, work on this. Here's the relevant part. This is what we think you ought to focus on. And so, so in Atlanta, who provided that was CF Atlanta. And a lot of that started out, I think, with the leadership with Niall McCarty and Arlene Stasenko had set up a framework with which a basic scientist like me could actually come in and we could actually study questions in a relevant kind of way. And these are still the same questions I've always been interested in, but just trying to study them in a way that actually might actually help someone in the end. And so it was really that combination of Georgia Tech and the infrastructure there, and then all the clinical expertise at Emory that allowed us, in CF Atlanta that allowed us to come in. One of the reasons why we moved to Georgia Tech was obviously the science that was there. There's a lot of really good technical expertise, like I'd maybe mentioned before. And a lot of engineering there, and most of you probably know Georgia Tech and you think of it as an engineering school, but really it's made some really great strides in biology recently, and one of the places that we've made a lot of strides is in microbiology. And we've hired a whole set of individuals that are actually really not only interested in microbiology, but very specifically CF microbiology. And those individuals have now sort of allowed us to nucleate at Georgia Tech. When you actually have a community of individuals, right, all focused on a specific problem, it really helps not only the faculty like me, but all the people that work for us. They feel like they have a community and a group that they can actually talk to beyond their own labs. And I really think that Georgia Tech has really made a lot of significant efforts and resource investments in this area really recently. We actually started a center called the Center for Microbial Dynamics and Infection, and currently it works very closely with CF Atlanta. When I've always talked to people who don't know a lot about science or maybe aren't directly in the field, and you tell them that, oh, I work with PhDs and MDs, they don't really see a distinction between those people. They think PhDs and MDs are very similar, but they're trained in very different ways. And a lot of times, MDs and PhDs may be studying the same thing and not even really know that they are, because they approach things from such different ways. And I think so a real key, and I think one of the real successes you see in CF Atlanta is this bridging of clinical and basic microbiology that we've been particularly important, I feel like, at Georgia Tech in bringing this microbiology to bear at CF Atlanta and really working with the clinicians to sort of, I think, bring microbiology into all aspects of CF research, not just the things that we're interested in. I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited to be associated with CF Atlanta. It's been the best thing that I've done in my career, I think. And the last 3 years have been great. And I think we have a lot of momentum. We have a great team. And we really thank everyone for their support.
Thanks, Marvin. Thanks, Jessica. You can also find short research vignettes on our website, cfatl.org. Vignettes coming from 4 different investigators. So Dr. Eric Sorsher, Dr. Marvin Whiteley, who you just met, Dr. Arlene Stasenko, and Dr. Rabindra Tiravansiam. Now, the research program is going extremely well and really growing very nicely, but it's only relevant if it impacts the clinical program, our clinical excellence program. So I just want to pause for a minute and tell you why the diamond for clinical excellence is at the top of the overall diamond for CF Atlanta. And that's because everything we do needs to impact our clinical care program. Therefore, I want to introduce you to Dr. Rachel Linneman, our Children's Plus Emory CF Care Center Director, and Dr. Randy Hunt, the Director of the Adult Program within the umbrella of CF Atlanta.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel Linneman. I'm the director of our clinical program, the Children's and Emory CF Care Center, and the Hertz Professor of CF Care. I began this role in April 2019, which gave me the opportunity to re-examine our clinical program's mission and goals. Our mission is to improve the health and lives of the nearly 700 people living with cystic fibrosis receiving care at Children's in Emory. We are the second largest center in the country, and so we are privileged to have the opportunity to care for 2% of the US CF population. For children with CF, like Grayton, pictured here, our goal is to transition him to adult care with lung function of 100% and the chance to pursue all his childhood passions. And for adults with CF, like Amy, who recently got married while participating in a key clinical trial, our goal is to preserve her health while helping her lead a full and productive adult life. To support this mission, our vision is to be a clinical center of excellence, producing top outcomes nationally. In addition, we want to leverage the strength of our large clinical program to integrate with and enhance research, education, and outreach. And lastly, we want to build and enhance Children's and Emory's national reputation for preeminence in CF. Our specific clinical goals are to achieve top outcomes nationally for key metrics, to optimize patient quality of life, and to optimize the patient and family experience of care. These interrelate. For example, a person with CF with depression affecting their quality of life may struggle to complete their daily treatments in order to optimize their lung function. I now want to share with you a few recent highlights from our center. In July 2019, the two pediatric CF programs integrated to form one Children's and Emory CF program, co-directed by myself and Dr. Kevin Kirschner. People with CF receive care at the Center for Advanced Pediatrics, pictured here. The integration provided an opportunity to learn from each other and create new best practices, improving quality and consistency of care. As one program, we now offer improved access to CF specialized staff and research studies. The CF clinic is located on the Shearer family floor, donated by the Hertz Family Foundation. The clinic space was specially designed to provide care for people with CF. Adjacent to the clinic, we have a CF research lab donated by the Hiller family. This space allows us to conveniently conduct clinical research visits. Across the street is our Emory Adult CF Clinic, now located in Executive Park. Dr. Randy Hunt became the director in 2018, and the program is flourishing under his leadership. As you can see in this figure, over 50% of people living with CF are now adults. A major goal for the next 5 years is to ensure equal resources for our growing adult population. In late 2019, the National CF Learning Network selected both our programs to join its collaborative quality improvement network. We are now using data-driven approaches to track metrics and to develop quality projects and care algorithms for key outcomes. This is an incredible opportunity to contribute to improvement work nationally, as well as improve the care of people with CF here in Atlanta. We also hired Sydney Schiff, a process improvement specialist dedicated to CF, and Sydney was recently selected for a leadership role within the CFLN. We have several other innovative center-wide programs that provide key services to people with CF and their families. These include our transition program, genetic counseling program, mental health program, and CF pharmacy program, which is vital given the increasingly complex medication regimens prescribed to people with CF. Importantly, most of these have been developed or are looking to expand with support from grants or community funding. Our Children's and Emory Care Center continues to build our reputation for preeminence. Many members of our clinical team are involved at the national level, leading sessions at our annual conference, as well as serving as mentors and committee members for various CF Foundation programs. In addition, our center received a 2018 Outstanding Partnership Award for our collaboration with the Georgia CFF chapter. And our pediatric program has been selected to receive a 2020 Quality Care Award from CFF later this month. Our clinical program is embedded in a vibrant CF community as part of CF Atlanta, yet the patients are at the center of everything we do. We are so grateful for the support our center has received from our community partners to date. We have identified several ways funding from the community could help us continue to improve outcomes and sustain our innovative and vital programs. If you are interested in supporting our clinical programs, I would be happy to discuss these opportunities with you. As we look ahead and continue to strive to accomplish our goal of care excellence, I look forward to continued partnerships with our community supporters. Thank you.
Hi, my name is William Hunt. Everyone calls me Randy. I am an assistant professor at Emory University and also a physician and scientist within the Children's Plus Emory CF Care Center. I'm the adult program director for the cystic fibrosis program at Emory. And I'm also in the Division of Pulmonary Allergy, Critical Care, and Sleep Medicine in the Department of Medicine. My clinical focus really is cystic fibrosis. It is my absolute passion, and it's been my life's work. And I also, in that context, work with individuals who undergo lung transplantation as well. Why am I so passionate about CF care and education and research? That is a huge question, but an incredibly important one. I first became aware of cystic fibrosis in residency. So residency is training that you do after you finish up medical school to really learn the craft of medicine. And I was really interested in learning about both pediatrics and internal medicine. So I'm both a pediatrician and an internist. And it's really then, when I was training in Indiana at Riley's Hospital for Children, that I saw how much CF could affect someone in their life, and then also the importance of transitioning for those individuals as they grew from what used to be a pediatric disease, but is no longer, is now really an adult disease as much as it is a pediatric illness. And it was always really interesting to me to see how some people transition really well and others struggled with it. On top of that, and this is, I think, also critically important, is cystic fibrosis. While there's a lot of support for cystic fibrosis globally, for an individual, it can be a very isolating disease. There's no CF camps that are out there, where you can go and share your stories with other people, or be with other people who are going through similar things as you. Now, social media maybe has made this a little better now that we live in this era of social media, but for a long time it was very isolating, and that, I think, was very difficult for me to see as well. And I think particularly as CF grows and becomes more of an adult chronic illness, that's where my passion lay in trying to help those individuals grow into adulthood and really strive to have the most successful life they could. In anything in medicine or any illness, it's important to recognize that what we do from a clinical standpoint is an important part, but only one part of the larger picture. Coming and seeing the CF team, whether it's adult or pediatric in clinic, is, again, it's important, but it is only part of the picture, in that if a person who's coming for care doesn't have the ability to seek the medicines that they need, or the tools that they need, or the research that really is going to help them lead better quality of lives, longer quantity of lives, then what we do in clinic is only scratches the surface or is for naught. And that's where the community that surrounds the CF community in general is so important. And I've just been so blessed to be part of this outstanding community in Atlanta, particularly with the Atlanteans, as well as the Georgia chapter of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, because they are always so incredibly supportive, not only of our patients and their loved ones, but of our clinical and research programs as well. As I mentioned, it's fine if you see someone and you're trying to take care of them from a clinical standpoint and provide them with tools, but if they can't get those tools or can't afford those tools, then it's as if they don't even have them. And that's where the foundation is critically and vitally important in helping support patients in terms of seeking the care that they need, having the tools they need to have better quality of lives. And that extends into our programs as well. So the foundation and Atlanta as a whole has really surrounded and embraced CF Atlanta as a whole in order to really make this an outstanding institution where CF can mean cure found someday for our individuals with CF, so that it's not just a chronic illness that they live with, but something that they had once. It's even more vitally important from a research perspective as well, because we know that as individuals with CF are getting older, which is a good thing, that there may be new horizons for them to explore, and actually maybe new issues that with CF that they may have as adults that we never could have conceived of before. And so it's still vitally important that the community supports both clinical efforts as they grow older, but also our research efforts as they grow older, so that we can continue to assault forward and provide them the best quality and quantity of life that they can achieve. I just want to close by saying that I so, from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of my whole team, are so gratefully appreciative of the support for CF Atlanta and all of our patients within the CF community. I'm so excited about the future. I think that as a absolutely top outstanding program in CF care, not only do we serve the individuals with CF in the state of Georgia and our surrounding areas, but the things that we learn here are going to spread out and really help individuals with CF all over the world. And I think that's the beautiful thing about clinical care and research, and that's what we can do here at CF Atlanta. So again, thank you for your support. It means the world.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Randy. You know, another thing that we focus on quite a lot at CF Atlanta is education and outreach. One of the things we really want to do is to train and grow the next cadre of really outstanding clinician scientists and research scientists. One of the ways that we do this is through our innovative CF Scholars program that seeks to train both predoctoral and postdoctoral fellows from both the MD track and the PhD track, and train them to become outstanding members of the CF community. This is a program that Dr. Stasenko and I started several years ago, and is now led by Dr. Linneman, Dr. Joanna Goldberg, and myself. Here's the current class of CF Scholars, and you can see that we have both clinical fellows and research fellows, PhD fellows, and we have fellows from Emory and fellows from Georgia Tech. Each year we hold a competition to identify the research trainee who's written the best abstract for presentation at the North American CF Conference, the NACFC. That trainee is then named the Leanne Rittenbaum Ott Fellow for the year and wins this award, which is named for a really wonderful, very much loved member of the CF community, local CF community that we lost, Leanne Rittenbaum Ott. We lost her in 2018 due to complications from CF. The winner for 2019 was Madeline May, a graduate student from Georgia Tech, and we still have yet to name the 2020 winner because NACFC has not happened yet. Another important part of our program, our outreach program, is the work with the Georgia chapter of the CF Foundation. So Mrs. Molly Taggart, the executive director of that group, is here to tell us more about this.
My name is Molly Taggart, and I'm honored to serve as the Executive Director of the Georgia chapter of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. It's a great pleasure for me to join you in this special moment. I'm here for many reasons, but mainly I'm here to say thank you to all the people who help families living with cystic fibrosis each day, and more specifically to the CF Atlanta team, whose partnership with our chapter for more than a decade has helped advance the CF Foundation's mission. We seek to cure cystic fibrosis and to provide all people with CF the opportunity to lead long, fulfilling lives by funding research and drug development, partnering with the CF community, and advancing high-quality, specialized care. We cannot fulfill our mission alone. We are honored to partner with this great team, a team which includes generous individuals from Emory, Children's, Georgia Tech, and the University of Georgia, all who have helped us advance our goals. It's inspiring to collaborate with so many brilliant minds, dedicated researchers, skilled care providers, and educational leaders, all focused on one thing: putting an end to the suffering associated with this life-limiting disease. On behalf of my chapter and the entire CF Foundation, We thank all of those who are helping us get one step closer to realizing our shared dream, curing cystic fibrosis.
You know, we're really proud of our partnership with the CF Foundation and especially the Georgia chapter. Thank you, Molly. We support each other and we're all working toward the same goal of really solving the massive problems that our CF patients and their families experience. And now I want to bring back Dr. Linneman for a special announcement.
As we celebrate 10 years of CF Atlanta, we wanted to recognize someone who has crucially contributed to the successes of our Center of Excellence, and in particular, our clinical care program. Dr. Arlene Stasenko has been dedicated to caring for people with CF for decades. She has cared for over 1,000 individuals with CF during her career. She had the vision to found the adult CF clinical program at Vanderbilt in the mid-1990s. She then moved to Emory in 2000 and founded the Emory Adult CF Clinical Program in 2002. She has twice served as director of our CF Care Center. In this role, she established quality improvement as an integral part of our programs. As Emory Division Chief, Dr. Stasenko has recruited most of our CF physicians and many CF scientists to our program. She was an early adopter of integrating CF specialized GI and endocrine doctors into our CF teams. Dr. Stasenko has not only been devoted to caring for people with CF, but has been equally dedicated to the fight to understand CF diabetes in the research lab and to mentoring faculty. Throughout her career, she has exemplified leadership and excellence in CF care. Today, in her honor, I am thrilled to announce a new CF Atlanta Award, the Dr. Arlene Stasenko Leadership Award for Excellence in CF Care. This award will recognize CF care team members who have demonstrated a career-long commitment to providing outstanding service to our patients and families. It is my pleasure to present this inaugural award to Dr. Arlene Stasenko.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you so much, Arlene, for all your hard work. You know, a key factor that's contributed to our success is our work with the community to raise funds for all three parts of our mission. As shown in this slide, we've been able to work with a significant number of groups across Atlanta, which has been really impactful, particularly as we think about trying to launch new parts of our program, such as the non-pulmonary CF research program that set us up for the NIH P30 funding, as Dr. Alvarez mentioned. Community support has enabled us to do new things across all three parts of our mission. For instance, we were able to recruit incredible research and clinical care faculty members, such as Dr. Eric Sorscher and Dr. Rachel Linneman. We expanded into non-pulmonary research, including CF-related diabetes. That is a really key component of our work now. We opened the Scherer Family Floor at the CAP that Dr. Linneman told you about, and the Donna Yeaman Hiller Research Lab at the CAP. Some other activities enabled by community support are listed here. Within the clinical program, the community has supported our genetic counselor, our transition coordinator, our mental health coordinator, and our quality improvement specialist. We've been able to use philanthropic support for directors of CF gastroenterology and liver disease and CF endocrinology. This is Dr. Freeman and Dr. Daly Jean-Pierre. We've been able to support our adult CF program director, Dr. Randy Hunt, who you've met. On top of our research in non-pulmonary aspects of CF, community support has enabled us to launch a data integration core that is really a key component for the Georgia CF data warehouse that I mentioned before. This is an effort being led by faculty at Georgia Tech to work on connecting clinical care data with research lab data. We've been able to support research faculty at Emory and Georgia Tech. And we have a small directors fund that we use to support exploratory projects, just to people that want to see if they can start a new project, whether it's a trainee or a faculty member. We've been able to buy equipment for the clinic-based research labs in both the pediatric clinic and the adult clinic. We've been able to buy common equipment for the research labs that all investigators have access to. We've supported biostatistics support for research projects of both trainees and faculty members. And very importantly, the community has supported the research coordinator that's absolutely key to the CFBR that I mentioned early on. Within education and outreach, the community has supported the Leanne Rittenbaum Ott Fellows Award and the CF Scholars Program. I just want to thank the community for your support of CF Atlanta's work. This is a really key component of what enables a comprehensive program like ours to excel. We still have specific needs within all three parts of our program: research, clinical care, and education and outreach. And we'd love to have you consider supporting us. And with that, I'd like to let you hear once again from our friend, Mr. Doug Hertz, who has some important closing words to say.
I just want to thank all of you for making yourselves available and for your consideration in an investment in such a fantastic asset that the city of Atlanta and the state of Georgia has, and that we have at Emory and Children's here. Our family is heavily invested here for multiple reasons, but certainly none more than personal relationships with families that are dealing with CF. But also from the fact that we can be one of the top places in the United States, and we never want to have patients have to leave the city to get the top care that they can get and to produce the top research. And we're at that point right now. We can be an importer of patients. We can add to the quality of life for all of those in Atlanta. And so I just want to thank you for your consideration alongside of our family to make an investment in the CF Center of Excellence here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for lending us your ear and for taking the time to learn about some of the really exciting things that are happening in the CF Atlanta program. We'd love to have a conversation with you if you're interested in supporting our work, whether that's through Emory or Children's or Georgia Tech, and whether it's for either part of the program, the clinical care program, the research program, or education and outreach. If you're interested in having a conversation with us, I hope you'll email me at cfatlanta@emory.edu. And thank you again very much for your support, your interest, and your time. Please contact us if you'd like to learn more.